Here at Automate 2026, there's advanced motion control technology, well, just about everywhere. In industry, of course, control of motion is the essence of industrial automation. It's the essence of machine building and machine specification. But today, motion control is more than just making sure that you can spin motors or run actuators the way you want them to. There are other factors at play now. The human-machine interface, quality, safety, communication, security. It's a lot to think about. And here at Yaskawa, Trevor Sisco, sales engineer, has a solution called iCube. I spoke with him about it. So Trevor, we're standing in front of a display for iCube Control, a total system for total control. Tell me about iCube.
Yeah, so it is a whole technology platform. It's not just hardware or not just software, but it's really a whole platform that offers up a flexible and scalable design concept.
Now you mentioned flexible and scalable. Of course, historically we thought of the hardware component. Software was kind of like an overlay that you flop on top of it, and then the often mechanical engineer who's worried about the actual motion is a little concerned about the software side. That's for a different kind of expert down there. But this is more holistic, I understand.
It is, yeah, and if we take a step back for a second, we really cut our teeth on motion control technology. So over 20-some years, we built upon a flexible motion kernel, and we didn't change that a bit. In fact, we brought that right into this ecosystem. So what this ecosystem does is it takes that prowess in multi-axis motion control, coordinated motion control, really what we're good at, and then it puts it on a engine and a backplane that's powered by EtherCAT technology.
Now, it's many people, of course, in the work industry often come up through a G-code, M-code world. So they basically think in Cartesian ways, they think in sort of conventional machine sort of programming ways, and that's kind of the way they design their hardware systems as well, to drive in those. But you've got a very flexible system here that could do a lot of different things, controlling in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, exactly. And in fact, if we went into Cartesian, just as an example, we would select servo A, B, C, you are X, Y, and Z, you're hanging out together. That's a coordinated motion plane. You are a coordinate system, you're this long from here and here, and enter some simple mechanical attributes, and you now have group axis motion control. And that is one feature that is built into our flexible motion kernel, has been for some years, but also brought into this platform as well.
Well, it sounds like you add some flexibility in terms of how you program motion, because historically, of course, if you had complex motion, either you had to interpolate it from basics, either simple Cartesian or rotational or coordinate systems, or you had to have another machine, another op, another way to handle the thing. But you can sort of figure out the entire motion path in a holistic way now in one stop.
Yeah, it's an amalgamation of all of those things and different control methods that you listed out, but not limited to. So aside from motion control, this platform actually brings in PLC, safety PLC, which is probably one of the big ones. TUV certified SIL3 safety PLC is built into this controller. So that allows you to bring in safety I/O. We actually manufacture our own remote I/O, if you didn't already know that, in our European headquarters in Germany. So bringing in all these aspects to the same technology suite is what allows you to be flexible, to add features as new compliance comes into play, whether that's on the machine safety front, but also something we haven't yet touched on is the IT side of really having truly hardened security.
Yeah, and I want to definitely loop back to the security side. Everyone's, of course, talking about that right now. But to hang in with safety for a moment, historically, of course, you worried about safety in terms of what will the OSHA inspector see when he visits, and that was sort of the limit of it. You might have had an internal safety compliance officer who kind of looked at the design and thought about that and thought about guarding or fail-safe systems. But we're in a world now where you need a regulatory paper trail that demonstrates that you're code compliant or compliant with regulations. But also, we're living in a world now where sometimes sophisticated customers, they themselves want to know that their vendor is compliant.
There is. There's a onus. There's something that we need to do as hardware manufacturers. It's important to note, and I'm glad you went there. All of those things and some other things as well with the Sigma X motor and drive technology package enable that. So you do need enablement at the hardware level. So if you're achieving a SIL3 safety rating, of course, you need a safety rated encoder in the motor, as an example. Just to sidestep just a little bit, within the same ecosystem, in another kind of case, we have a three-dimensional accelerometer. We have a whole bunch of different monitors that can be used, and they're objects over EtherCAT that can be read and studied, plotted, to look at things like anomaly detection, or something's going awry with the machine, preventative maintenance, predictive maintenance, now, cloud-enabled maintenance, which, I think in a minute we're going to cover a couple of the features as well on the connectivity side of this.
Yeah, now you mentioned, of course, the accelerometers, of course, and historically, you know that you have a problem when the machine crashes.
Yes.
Yes, but you're talking about a world, exactly, you're talking about a world now in which you don't have to wait for a disaster to happen before you know you have a problem.
Right, yeah, you're seeing a drift, you're seeing an anomaly, you're seeing something kind of happen over time and accumulate. And again, the enabling that in the hardware, at the hardware base level, and then that feeds up through the ecosystem, which you can then have more total control. So iCubeControl.com is the global website for this. It talks about the total control that you get with this technology suite.
Now, you talked about connectivity, you talked about total control, of course. We also live in a world in which we expect disparate divisions that might be worldwide. It might be a matter of a plant across the street, it might be a matter of a plant halfway around the world. Making sub-assemblies or pulling them together for final assembly. Our sophisticated customers, the aerospace or the automotive OEMs, want to know in real time what's being manufactured at your different places around the world. Can you control a process literally globally? Could I be in Perth, Australia, for example, and find out whether or not I've got excessive vibration in that motor in that machine?
Yeah, it sounds like you're describing a monitoring function, and you could absolutely dial into that. So this platform offers IT hardened security. We don't want to bore everybody here today with it, but we have ISA certification and different compliance mechanisms built into this hardware.
Well, the IT security, of course, is on everyone's lips these days. They tend to frame it in terms of AI, but it's really more fundamental than AI. It's really a question of we're pushing a lot of information to the cloud, and essentially we're crossing our fingers that if we buy a security package that it's going to be okay. But we've got many firms who are worried about ITER compliance if they're doing things for DoD. But in many cases, there's simply proprietary information that is very important to the business. And you simply need to control who has it and who doesn't. How do you keep someone from hacking a system which is cloud-based?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of different ways. But one of them with this hardware, at the hardware level, and what's enabled with this is we have built-in OCI engines for containerization. So if you did need to create an API through perhaps a REST interface, that is built into this hardware. End-to-end encryption between anything is also built in. In fact, it's enabled out of the box. You have to disable it if you were to not use that. But enabled out of the box, end-to-end encryption, device-level encryption, security certificate management. You really kind of need these things as the framework for a secure environment. But then from there, you can build it out in a lot of different ways, and the technology professionals, the IT professionals, will know the best way to utilize our hardware and software suite to achieve what they want to do and the risks that they want to take on, because it's really more of a risk management situation for them.
Now, we haven't touched about the HMI, but the HMI, in my mind, in my world, is critical, essentially. If users can't basically understand what is happening, it's very difficult to control or manage any process. HMI technology evolved from, keyboards, literally keying in motion control parameters, with numbers and figures, to more sort of graphical user interface at this point. What's the state of the art? What do you feel it basically is the place that we need to be for an optimal HMI? And you've got some interesting stuff going on with iCube Control.
Yeah, so we definitely have a couple panels that we're selling right now as a part of the solution. We have a couple more coming, in fact, at the end of this calendar year, being 2026. So we're bringing in the fold the modern way to connect to an HMI. So the modern way to connect to HMI is through OPC UA. On board, this is an OPC UA server. And then if you needed it to be an OPC UA client, one of the other connectivity options to SCADA or other supervisory level software or devices even within the plant, this can be an OPC UA client.
Now, would you specify iCube Control as an OEM solution if you're a manufacturer of bespoke industrial automation or robotics, or would you sort of sell it standalone to an end user who'd integrate it into existing system?
iCube Control is an OEM solution, absolutely, who we kind of target and want to promote this product to, who we're meeting with on the day-to-day, our machine builders. And that's just, in fact, because it provides the scalability and the hardware, the framework, and everything that we've covered so far is, you need a good footwork, or you need a good foundation to build off of, and this allows you the openness to do that. And some of the things that we actually haven't covered yet, but I'll give a quick commercial on, is it is a real-time Linux preempt operating system. So that allows C#, C++ integration, the containerization I talked about earlier, Rust, Java. You can write libraries outside of iCube runtime. You could keep them outside. You could containerize them and run them real-time inside. So when people come to us and they have their intellectual property from building machines over the years, what's next? Well, they might have a custom front end. They might have a custom mathematical equation. They might have something that needs to be incorporated with modern framework and a motion control prowess, and that's exactly what you'll get with iCube control.
Yeah, Trevor, I think that's a critical point, which is a lot of firms develop tremendous expertise in very, very specialized areas. If it's an elastomeric bushing and you've developed a way in which you know exactly how much insertion force to put in that won't break it, but will assemble it with maximum speed, or a quality control system using machine vision, where basically you know which path will produce the most amount of data with the smallest delay in a multi-step process. There are thousands of possible examples, but some say that's where the real value of your organization is. It's in that knowledge, basically. Yeah, so you need that knowledge inside the equipment, but you also need not the whole world to know about it at the same time, and you need to have more than one person in your building who understands how it works.
Right, I agree, and on that note, you could lock down different parts of your source code. You could omit uploading your source code, of course, to protect that intellectual property. And then everything that we've covered with kind of setting the stage for allowing you to incorporate that IP that you have brought to the table and brought in. And a quick note on EtherCAT, coming back to that, having an EtherCAT master built into the controller, it's an EtherCAT controller. That allows us to partner up with people that make hardware that are the best at what they do. We really want to be, and we think we are really providing the best-in-class solution for motion control. But I, for example, don't do pneumatics. So the best of the best pneumatics have EtherCAT as a sub-device available for their solution. So, it's what the hardware device manufacturers are going to, and you don't have to take my word for it. EtherCAT organization and their website, the technology group, they actually publish everybody who's adopting the EtherCAT technology. So it's a way that you're really investing into the future of an ecosystem and taking advantage of what everyone's best at.
Well, you brought up another important point, which is for an OEM is using iCube Control as an OEM solution. If I'm the customer and I'm buying the first unit from that vendor at this point, now I've got a unique standalone unit there. No one understands how it operates. It's different from anything we have in the past. But you're using words like EtherCAT connectivity, Java, C++, things which people who are already in production engineering understand.
Yeah, and not just them, but there seems to be a large push coming out of academia. So the old PLC programming languages, they're still very much so there, and that's what our motion kernel's written around and supports. But having the additional other language supports and higher level programming languages opens up avenues for people to use.
Do you expect any different or special training required that if you ship a machine with iCube Control in there and drop it on the factory floor at this point, is it going to seem unfamiliar to a user who's using conventional PLCs, for example?
I don't think so. They still use an HMI and all the alarm codes and alarm traces, what happened before, what happened after, what this caused. All that troubleshooting is built into the HMIs. Ultimately the machine builder can determine just exactly how robust that is. But no, I don't think so. When our customers are adopting our technologies, they're coming to Yaskawa's professional training program, which we host in Illinois. And we have a whole dedicated department for that. But that's more on the development side. It's not the end user that's going to be purchasing that capital equipment. So certainly the developers go through our training so that they can be the most efficient and utilize the different technologies and software advantages, to be aware of them and how to use them.
Do you expect iCube control to be installed in general purpose robotics, bespoke, custom industrial automation equipment, both?
Yeah, so I would say custom automation equipment, but kind of right behind us is our sister product group, and a very important product group to our organization, and that is the Motoman Robotics. And it's something I neglected to mention earlier, that this controller actually can control their robotics as well, our robotics. So if you did have a robot from Motoman and or this machine, and then you want to add a Motoman robot, we can do that through this same controller and bring that into the control system. So it's kind of tough to pigeonhole it to one industry or the other. We're really solving motion control centric applications, and then again, built-in PLC, safety PLC, and robotic control.
Trevor, what industries do you expect to see your equipment operating in on the shop floor? Aerospace, automotive, consumer goods?
Yes. All of them. No, really. I mean, the Swiss watch manufacturers to automotive to metal converting, metal forming to some commercial applications, which you may have seen on YouTube that involve sports stadiums. Typically an industrial arena, but we really do serve any industry that needs positioning requirements could use servo motion technology.
I spoke with Trevor Sisco, sales engineer at Yaskawa America, about iCube Control, a way to integrate all those factors into one system.